All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we're diving deep into something that sounds like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie, the Leopard 3 tank. I've been looking over these articles, specs, even a video breakdown, and this thing is wild. I mean, some of the stuff is like next level.
Yeah, what's really fascinating is how they're designing this tank to deal with all the new threats out there,
Yeah.
like stuff that barely existed 10 years ago even.
So is this like a completely new design, or are we talking about a souped-up Leopard 2?
Oh no, this is a whole different animal. It's actually part of a bigger project between Germany and France, the MGCS, the Main Ground Combat System.
Yeah.
They want to replace both the Leopard 2 and the French Leclerc with this one platform.
Wow, ambitious. So when are we actually going to see this thing on the battlefield?
Well, they're aiming for the mid-2030s, but they're planning on showing off some early demos between 2025 and 2028. Of course, with a project this big, those dates could totally change. And there's even talk of a stopgap tank, maybe a super upgraded Leopard 2. They might call it the Leopard 2 RX, just to hold the line until the Leopard 3 is ready.
Right, got to keep those defenses strong. Speaking of strong, let's talk about the new cannon. This thing is packing some serious heat.
Yeah, we're talking about a huge jump from the 120-millimeter cannon on the Leopard 2 to a 130-millimeter cannon. Rheinmetall developed it. And it's not just the size. This new cannon has like 50% more kinetic energy, so way more penetration and range.
That's impressive, but those 130-millimeter rounds can't be easy to handle.
Oh, absolutely. Those things are massive, over 30 kilograms each and over 1.3 meters long. You need an auto-loading system just to move those things around. And they had to completely redesign the turret and hull to fit it all in. It's a huge engineering challenge for sure.
So we've got this super powerful cannon on a redesigned platform. What else makes the Leopard 3 so different from what came before?
Well, this is where it gets really cool. This isn't just about brute force anymore. The onboard computer systems on this thing are practically a supercomputer.
Yeah, from what I've seen, it's practically a computer on tracks. What can these systems do?
Think way beyond just aiming and shooting. You've got advanced fire control systems with AI support for target recognition and tracking and so much more. The computer can instantly calculate all the firing parameters, like target movement, wind, even the curvature of the Earth for those long shots.
Curvature of the Earth, that's some serious range, but it sounds like it goes even further than that.
It does. Imagine a digital battlefield network built right into the tank. It can talk to other units in real time, other tanks, drones, infantry. It's like a connected, intelligent fighting force.
And then there's the AI integration. Is this the future of tank warfare?
AI is definitely a game changer. It's like having a super smart co-pilot on board. It can help with threat detection, route planning, even suggesting countermeasures. And all of that is fed into augmented reality displays for the crew. They have a level of situational awareness that was impossible before.
So we're talking about devastating firepower, incredible connectivity, and an AI that's basically a tactical advisor. But with all that tech, all that connectivity, doesn't that make it a prime target for hackers?
That's a great point. The more we rely on networks, the more vulnerable we become to cyber attacks. That's why cybersecurity is so important for the Leopard 3.
So what kind of defenses are we talking about? Is it like a super strong firewall or something?
It's way more than just a firewall. Think layers upon layers of cybersecurity. They're even using air gap isolation for the most important systems. So those systems are physically separated from the network. No way to hack them remotely. Plus, they have continuous monitoring and AI-powered anomaly detection to catch any suspicious activity before it can cause problems.
So it's not just about keeping hackers out, it's about constantly looking for intrusions. But what about physical attacks? Drones are a big deal these days. How does the Leopard 3 deal with those?
That's where the MUS 2.0 active protection system comes in. It's designed to detect and neutralize threats like drones and missiles before they hit the tank. It uses radar, infrared, lasers, optical sensors to identify and classify threats, and then it jams or disrupts their guidance systems.
It's like a shield that takes out anything that gets too close. Is there any way to get past it?
Well, they're already working on the next generation of MUS. They're adding something called optic detection, which uses the cat's eye effect. It can actually spot enemy optics, even if they're trying to be stealthy.
So it uses the enemy's own sensors against them? That's wild. But what about a more old-school threat, like someone trying to sneak up on the tank?
The Leopard 3 has 360-degree sensor coverage, thermal, infrared, motion detection. It can pick up the tiniest movements or heat signatures, even in total darkness.
No sneaking up on this thing then. But with all this tech, all these sensors, it must be heavy. How does it even move? Is it as agile as the Leopard 2?
Yeah, they're actually developing a brand new engine for it. It's called Olymp. And get this, it's being built by Leopard, the company that makes those giant construction cranes.
Liebherr making tank engines. That's unexpected.
Right. It's a big change from the MTU engines they've used before. But Olymp is more than just an engine. It's a complete engine block engine, transmission, cooling system, all in one. The goal is to make it more agile and maybe even streamline production.
More power and more efficient. That's impressive. But let's be real, this is a huge project, and it involves two different countries. Have there been any challenges in getting them to work together?
Yeah, German-French tank collaborations haven't always gone smoothly. Like the Standard Panzer and Camp Panzer 90, they both fell apart because of, differing opinions and international politics.
So you're saying there's a chance history could repeat itself with the Leopard 3?
There's definitely some skepticism out there. And there's a chance that interim Leopard 2RX might become a longer-term solution, especially if they run into funding problems or collaboration issues.
So the future of the Leopard 3 is still a little uncertain then.
It is. But one thing's for sure, the technology is groundbreaking. It's a huge leap forward for armored warfare. And it's all driven by the need to counter all these new threats. Drones, cyber warfare, you name it.
Okay, so before we move on to the next part of our deep dive, what's the one thing you want our listener to take away from all this about the Leopard 3?
I think the biggest takeaway is that this isn't just about bigger guns and thicker armor. It's about bringing tanks into the digital age, integrating artificial intelligence, and building a tank that's as smart as it is powerful.
And that brings up a really interesting question. With all this technology, how will the role of tanks change on the battlefields of the future? Will they become the ultimate AI-powered war machines? Or will we see even newer threats that need even more radical solutions? We'll explore those questions and more in the next part of our deep dive.
Yeah, it's like we're stepping right into one of those sci-fi movies. Thinking about how all this technology is going to change how wars are fought, it's mind-blowing.
Really makes you think about the future of soldiers, doesn't it? I mean, as tanks get more and more automated, relying more on AI, what does that mean for the people inside?
Some people might say it's taking the human element out of war, but then again, wouldn't it be better if soldiers were out of harm's way? That's a good point, and it's a big reason they're developing these technologies. But it does raise some, ethical questions, like who's responsible when machines are making life or death decisions on the battlefield? It's complicated. No easy answers there.
Right, like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad. It all depends on the person using it.
Exactly. But we've talked about the firepower, the tech, the defenses. What about the human side of things inside the Leopard 3? I mean, operating a machine this complex has got to take some serious skills.
I was just thinking that, what kind of training would a Leopard 3 crew even need? It can't just be driving and shooting anymore.
Oh, definitely not. They'll need all the classic tank crew skills, of course,
Yeah.
but also a deep understanding of all the advanced systems on board. They need to be able to read data from all these different sources, make split-second decisions in a high-pressure environment. It's more like training a pilot or an astronaut, I guess.
Wow, so we're talking about a whole new kind of soldier for these future tanks, but all that training, all that technology, it must cost a fortune, right?
Oh, without a doubt. Developing something like the Leopard 3 is a massive investment. And it's not just the upfront cost, it's the maintenance, the upgrades, the training. It's a big commitment.
Are any countries hesitant to spend that kind of money on traditional warfare? Especially when we're seeing more and more cyber attacks and drone strikes.
That's the debate everyone's having right now. Some people think tanks are becoming obsolete, that we should be focusing on cyber defense and drones instead.
But then others say tanks are still essential, especially for those head-to-head battles where you need that raw power and protection.
Exactly. It's tough to say. The future of warfare is probably going to be a mix of everything, traditional and high-tech. And the Leopard 3, if it lives up to the hype, could be a big part of that.
Speaking of adapting, we haven't talked about the environmental impact. Tanks aren't exactly known for being fuel efficient. Even with the new engine, can the Leopard 3 really be considered eco-friendly?
It's a great question, and it's something everyone's taking more seriously now. The military's impact on the environment is a big concern. And tanks, with all their fuel and heavy machinery, are definitely part of the problem.
Have they talked about making the Leopard 3 more sustainable? Like, could we see electric tanks in the future?
It's possible, actually. There's been some research into hybrid and even fully electric tanks. But the challenges are huge, especially with battery life and power. Powering a 60-ton tank is a lot different than an electric car.
True, but the benefits are huge too. Less emissions, less reliance on fuel, plus they'd be quieter, which could be a big advantage. But realistically, even if it's not fully electric, are they doing anything to make it less harmful to the environment?
Oh yeah, for sure. They're looking at lighter materials, more fuel-efficient designs, even alternative fuels like biofuels. It's not just about building a better war machine, it's about being more responsible.
That's good to hear. But what about selling this tank to other countries? I imagine there'll be a lot of buyers lining up for this technology.
Yeah, selling military tech is tricky. It's not just about who has the money. It's about making sure it doesn't end up in the wrong hands. There are a lot of rules and regulations, and they're always changing.
So it's a balancing act between national security, international cooperation, and making sure these weapons don't spread too far.
Exactly. And then there's the risk of technology being stolen or copied. It's a lot to think about.
It really is. So how do you think this is all going to affect the global arms race? Will everyone be scrambling to build even more advanced tanks, or will it push them towards different kinds of military tech?
That's a tough one. Every time a new weapon comes out, especially one as advanced as this, it changes the whole global security situation. It's a reminder that technology never exists in a vacuum.
So there's a lot of unknowns when it comes to the future of warfare.
Definitely, but that's why it's so important to talk about these things. We need to think about the implications of these technologies, the good and the bad. We need to be smart about how we use them.
I agree completely. This has been a fascinating deep dive so far, looking at the Leopard 3 and what it might mean for the future of war. But before we get to the final part of our discussion, what stood out to you the most? What makes the Leopard 3 such a game changer in your mind?
It is hard to pick just one thing, but I think for me, it's how the Leopard 3 is both a tank and like a super high-tech command center. It's like blurring the lines.
Yeah, I get that. It's a real mix of technologies like nothing we've seen before. You have the raw power of a tank, but also have the information processing and networking you'd find in a fighter jet. It's not just about firepower anymore. It's about having more information and making decisions faster than the other guy.
So it could change the whole way tank battles are fought.
Oh, totally. Imagine a tank that can predict what the enemy's going to do, talk to other units in real time, and even learn from what's happening on the battlefield. We've never seen anything like it.
It sounds like something out of a movie, but it's actually happening right now. And it makes you wonder what it all means, for the future, not just for war, but for everything. That's the big question, isn't it? With technology changing so fast, we need to be having these conversations about what it all means. What are the good things? What are the bad things? What about ethics? And what happens if it falls into the wrong hands?
Yeah, a lot to think about. But it's exciting too, right? We're not just talking about tanks here. We're talking about the future of humanity and how technology is going to shape it.
You got it. And I think that's important to remember. The Leopard 3, with all its bells and whistles, is just one part of a much bigger picture. It shows us how fast technology is moving, and it's up to us to figure out how to use it. What kind of future do we want?
It's a future with amazing possibilities, but also real dangers. And to navigate it, we need to be careful. We need to talk to each other, ask the hard questions.
I agree 100%. This has been a really great deep dive exploring the Leopard 3 and what it all means. I think we both learned a lot, and I hope our listener has too.
Me too. I've definitely got a whole new perspective on the future of war, and I'm just blown away by what humans can create with technology. It's been great talking about this with you, and I'm looking forward to our next deep dive.
Same here. Until then, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.
And to our listener, thanks for joining us on this journey. We hope you found it as interesting as we did. We'll catch you next time when we dive into another fascinating topic. Until then, stay curious.